Hi, welcome back to our channel. Today we are in the Church of St Mary at Holton St Mary. It's a bit of a mouthful. There is going to be a bit of a theme going on at the minute. You're going to think there's a lot of St Mary's churches, and there's a reason for that. We have quite a few churches around here called St Mary. Out of 15,000 churches in the UK, over 2,300 of them are actually dedicated to St Mary. So I've got today Paul with me and his cousin Jill. So we're now standing in the nave, and this was built about the 14th century. It's a little bit later than the chancel. You can see we've got some Norman windows. This one, which you'll be able to see on the outside better, used to be a door, and it has been filled in. But you can see that there's something strange going on there because it's a very deep or very long casement for a window. But it is a door and it has been blocked up, but I will show you more about that when we get outside. Now, this church has a little gem in it. It really does. If you ever come here, there is a house by the gate, and it used to be a schoolhouse. And it was opened on August the 29th in 1748. And I'm just trying to get up here. Now, I don't know if you're going to see it because I've got light shining on it. I'm just trying to angle that for you. Now, this was the original sign for the school. And apparently it's painted by Thomas Gainsborough. And it's absolutely stunning. It's probably, they think, one of his earlier works. It's a little bit on the primitive side, but also it has been restored over the last 200 and odd years, 300 years, whatever it is. So that may have taken away some of the finer details, but it's a little bit on the primitive side. But you can see he's holding a book, and there is a spade in his hand. And there seems to be some sort of a building in the background there, and a church, I think. But it's absolutely beautiful. So, and down here we've also got some details about some of the people that lived in the village who actually went off to war. And we've got George Crisp. He was born in 1891. And he died on the 3rd of October in 1918 in East Suffolk in Ipswich Hospital. And he's actually buried in this graveyard. I have actually seen his gravestone. If I remember, I will show it to you. And we've got George Albert Boreham. He died possibly at Friars. It's a French sounding name. I'm no good at French. I'm really sorry. We'll put that in there for you. You can see yourself. You're probably far better at French than I am and understand that. And then we've got Cecil Brown Skeet. He's buried in Baghdad on the Northgate War Cemetery and is mentioned in the headstone of his parents, Alice and Cecil Skeet, who are in the churchyard. And we've also got Richard Newson Skeet over there. He died at the schoolhouse, Holton St Mary, on the 4th of October 1919, and he's buried in the churchyard. And then we've got
George Albert Wheatley.
There we go. And I can't actually see where he is. I think he's buried somewhere abroad. Paul's got a torch shining right into my eyes at the minute, so I can't actually see. There we go. So we're just going to have another look around this church. If I can get out between the pews. So we've got a really tall 14th century tower arch. It is exceptionally tall. Now, as a Norman church, it's narrow but high. If you look straight up there, It just seems to go on forever. It really is tall. If Paul can get into the bag, he might take some measurements of that in a moment and let you know how tall that actually is. Right, and beyond that, we have got the west window. And I'm just going to nip in here. I don't know if you're going to be able to see that with the sun shining through the window the way it does. See if I can move around a bit. It's a shame that I can't actually show you what that looks like, but it is absolutely beautiful, and it was put there in 1881, and it was designed and made by Heaton, Butler and Bain. They seem to be quite prolific stained glass people. I believe they were in London. I'm not entirely sure. I am going to have to do some research on them at some point, because we come across a lot of churches with those in there. Right, now we'll come to the font, which is just in front of the west window, and as you can see, there's images of a rose. Not entirely sure what that is. It could be a cherub of some sort. There's defaced shields on here as well. Why shields would be defaced, I'm not entirely sure. The Reformation would have taken out any images of saints and things like that. But why shields, not entirely sure.
It's a real heavy font cover, that one.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's got cast iron on that.
It's
That's going to be oak, isn't it?
that is. It's worth mentioning as well. Something I didn't realise until quite recently. They would have immersed a whole baby in there. That would have been a lead-lined tank.
Well, they put the whole child in because they wanted to cover the child in holy water, so there was no way that the devil could get into the child at any point. So, but this looks like the base is older than the font itself. The base is probably 13th century, and as you can see, there are recesses, if you'd like, holes in that, where that would have had shafts for another.
Probably marble pillars.
Might well have been, but this is definitely not the font that goes with the base. So it's had another font there that's had.
Yeah, this is later.
8 shafts.
Yeah.
2, 4, 6.
Now, you told me the other day you could work out a rose by the way it sits. What?
Yeah, if you see a rose and it's 5 petals, I'll just do it this way to show you. If it's that way, so you've got that as the base there, that is the Yorkshire rose. If it sits on the pinnacle, it's the Tudor rose. Now, people probably will think that is a Tudor rose. I don't think it is. I think it's the rose from St Mary, because her attribute is the rose. And if it's a red rose, it's to do with martyrdom. And if it's a white rose, it's to do with purity. Right, we've now got here a set of royal arms for George II. It's very dark, but you can see that there's a lion and a unicorn. Now, coats of arms were put into a church because they were Church of England, and it was to show their allegiance to the present king. And that's the reason why they were put in. So I'm just going to make our way up the nave. Now, the nave, as I said, is possibly 14th century, whereas the chancel is the oldest part of the church and dates probably back to the 13th century, so a good 100 years younger. And we've got another leaded light window there. You can see by the thickness of the walls that this is a really early church. The thicker the walls, the older it is because of the primitive building techniques that were used to do it. Whoops, there's something loose underneath my feet. I do apologise. So we've got that there. So we're just going to have a look round. There's the pulpit. So the nave windows you can see have got decorated tracery within them. There is a small 19th century vestry that was added to the north side. Where is it? Over here. Just bear with me. I'm just trying to find some. I've got some details written down about some of these windows. So that's the vestry. Unfortunately, it is locked. And that's the organ, which is quite...
Big organ.
That's what I was thinking. It seems to be a really big organ for the size of the church.
Well, I always lock the keyboard so you can't play off. Got a lovely bunch of keyboards.
I'm saying nothing. Absolutely nothing. We could have another domestic on our hands at this rate. So that's that. I'm just trying to find some information out about these windows. Perhaps if Paul looks at that, he might be able to find out about these. I do know that there is a Heaton, Butler and Baines up here, but I don't think it's this one. I think it's Cooper's, is it? Just going to get him to have a look. You might be able to see that a little bit better. But these are windows of the original evangelists. And you can see that they've got their emblems down the bottom there. So you've got St. John and St. Luke there. So I'll just cross over. And there we go, we've got the altar with its sanctuary there. And then we've got this one here. I'm really sorry about the light coming through, but the church is so dark and the light is coming through and it's a little bit blinding, I think. So the one on the right is St. Matthew and the one on the left is St. Mark. And they're absolutely beautiful. And I think they'll put in the 1800s and something. Paul is going to chip up any moment now. Oh, I thought I had put it on there. So we've got a sedilla that sits within the recess of that window. And that's just a little stone seat. Right, and then over here we've got a piscina. I just need to get over here. And there you can see, and it's got this drain hole in there as well. So this would have been where the priests would have washed their hands. They would have washed them with holy water, etc. And any goblets and chalices they would have used within the Eucharist, they wash here. The water would then flood out into the graveyard.
And why was that?
Because the graveyard is consecrated and it seemed an appropriate way of dealing with it. And we have got the 10 Commandments on the wall. So you've got, thou shalt have none other gods than me. Thou shalt not make to myself and any graven image. Number 3, thou shalt not take the name of the Lord in vain. To keep the holy day Sabbath, keep holy the Sabbath day. And on this side is honour thy father and thy mother. Thou shalt do no murder. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbour. And thou shalt not covet thy neighbour's house.
Well,
So
3 out of 6 isn't bad, is it?
Who's doing 3 out of 6?
That's great joking. But when will they have been put up there?
It's probably, it looks quite old. I can't actually see a date on there. I don't honestly know.
But we think most of these went in the times of Elizabeth I or James I.
It might well be, and we've got James II's coat of arms there, so it could have been put in at the same time. So I'm just going to go over here. We've got another stunning window. I'm so sorry about the light coming through. It just looks like a white blur, doesn't it? But you've got the crucifixion of Christ in the middle there. I would imagine that that is his mother Mary. I don't know who that is. I'm taking a guess to say that that is his father Joseph, but I really am not an expert on religion whatsoever. I know very, very little, only from when I was about 4 years old and used to go to Sunday school, and I've sadly not done anything about it since.
Nice 19th century glass, but it's lovely.
It does look lovely. I just wish I could show people that. I really do. And it's beautiful. And here we've got a copy of the Lord's Prayer and the Apostles' Creed. So that's lovely. And here we've got an aumbrey. Now this is where they would have kept things like the chalices and the goblets and things that they used in the Eucharist. And they would keep it in here. And if you can see, it's got a recess along here. So this would have had a door. But it's such... the door must have been added later because you've got this lovely decorative edge here. And it would have seemed a shame to have that covered up. But this is probably where they would keep the vestments and things like that for the Eucharist.
I mean, it's another 19... I know, going back to windows, it's another... You've done this one, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're just coming out of the sanctuary now. Now, as you all know, if you're religious, the altar is the most important part of the ceremony because that's where the Eucharist or the Mass is said. And there's a lot that goes back there. And this is why a church was built. The altar was not ever built for a church. The church was built to protect the altar, to give it cover, to give it shelter. And that's why this church is here today. And then we've got another piece of glass here that was put in 1899. I don't know if you're going to see it, but there's like 2 angels there. One's playing a harp. I think the other one is cymbals. Not entirely sure. But it is to the glory of God and in loving memory of the Reverend James Honeybun, who was born on October the 7th, 1832 and died 17th of August, 1899. So we're just coming up to the pulpit now. So as you can see, it's absolutely a darling of a church. It's not very big, but it is absolutely gorgeous. Apart from the loose bit in the floor that I keep walking on. And it's starting to worry me. Right, going back to this picture here. You can see over here, I did forget to show you this. And it says, trying to get in close. I might have to get Paul to read this because I can't actually see it in front of the camera. But it says, to the memory of the Reverend Stephen White, M.A., rector of this church, who in the 76th year of his age departed from a life dedicated to the service of God.
He was
adorned with the virtues
of faith, orthodoxy and devotion, and a minister of Christ, was laborious and charitable. On April 12, 1778...
73.
73, right, okay. We've got 2 sets of
I'll
eyes.
take over, darling.
You do it.
Being Easter Monday, as he was officiating in the church, he was suddenly called away from his labours to receive their reward and expired in that school which his piety had raised. Blessed is that servant whom his Lord, when he cometh, shall find watching. And then there's another one there. Anne White, his relict.
Yeah.
Departed this life December 31st, 1781, aged 82. Now, Stephen White, the Reverend Stephen White, he was the person who opened the church. Opened the school in 1748. So he obviously knew Thomas Gainsborough, and that was why the sign was painted. And Thomas Gainsborough came from around these parts, him and along with John Constable. So I don't know if they knew each other, probably did.
Just a point on here, there's got the rectors of Holton St Mary.
Yep.
And starts off in 1429 with the Reverend James Passmere and goes right the way through the ages. He was here only a year, but some people have so we've got someone here who's done 25 years or 24 years. It's quite interesting how we go through the years. There's never a break in it. And right up to the day we've got the Reverend
Manette Crossman. Now, what I love to see now is we're going around so many churches now, and it's so nice to see that there's women vicars at long last.
Yeah.
And there seems to be far more women vicars that we've seen on church signs than male vicars. And you can see on this one, just a quick glance, and you've got the last three there that were female vicars. And I think that is such a nice thing. It really signals the sign of the times. And I think it's brilliant. Right, what's it, William Colchester? Right, we are going to grab the bag and we're going to walk around the outside of the church. Oh.
Watch out for that trapdoor.
Yeah. Can you bring that? So we're just going to go out through the porch. Now the porch is beautiful. The door is very narrow. So if you're like me, a little bit broad in the beam. Well, and it's got a dodgy step. Right, now we've got possibly medieval pews. These have got poppy head detailing on the end. They've obviously suffered over time with weather because the details on them are not very clear, but they're absolutely beautiful. And here we've got head posts that go along the dripstone of the church. That one is a king and that one is a queen. And then up the top there you've got the recess. That would have had an image of St Mary up there because this is the church that's dedicated to that saint, so you would have had her up there. Now the porch was built a lot later than the rest of the church, and they would have been built to protect the front door, the main door of the church. You know, and as you can see, it's been out in all weathers for quite a while and has suffered a little bit of damage. So a lot of churches do have the porch up there. There's other reasons for a porch. They're quite important. They can be quite grand. They can be quite simple. And you can see we've got buttresses here. Now the church is made out of flint and rubble stone. And you've got coins that are made of finer stonework. And this stonework we think would have been brought to this area. We're not known for having things like Portland stone, limestone, that sort of thing. We're quite rural around here in Suffolk. So,
all stone would have been put. What are coins?
Coins are these. The coins are these things here. These bricks here. And then we're being attacked by a little dog here.
Great.
These are coins. So you've got like the big one, the little one, the big one, the little one. And they're just like decorative cornicing on the church. Now I am going to hopefully, yes, I'm going to show you something a little bit special. Now I have come across this in a few churches before. Now that big rock there, they think it's a glacial boulder. They also think that it's pagan. Now, before this church was built, this probably would have been the site of a pagan church, and it would have had huge stones, standing stones, anything like that to worship. And then when Pope Gregory the Great sent his missionaries in 597 to re-establish the church here, they would have built the church on exactly the same spot as where the pagans worship. They would have taken their stones and they would have cleansed them with holy water and used them as part of the building. And it was a very well considered thing to do, because this meant that people were so used to coming to this spot to worship, nothing had changed other than that it was a new religion. And that's the reason why it was done that way. So we're just walking around. You can see the tower. Now, this tower was a lot bigger. I'm going to try and walk over here. As some of you might know from previous videos, I do tend to fall over quite a bit. So on uneven terrain in a graveyard can be a little bit treacherous for me. So I'm just picking Paul, if you just stay here. I'm just picking my way carefully. Right, you can see this tower doesn't look quite right, does it? It's got brick battlements up there. This tower was a lot taller when it was built, but sometime in the 17th century it had suffered centuries of neglect, and so the Victorians in the 19th century decided they would reduce the height of the tower, put brick battlements up there, and this is what we've got today. Absolutely beautiful. And I think we now refer to this as a squat tower. So I'm just going to pick my way through the graveyard again, and we're just going to go around here. Now, if you remember, I showed you that window that used to be a door. Now, this could have been a priest's door, but it's too far back in the nave really to be a priest's door. It could just have been another entranceway. You see, you've got the bricks there, you've got that little window, and then you've got the headstops at either end of the dripstone there. And then if you come round here, whoops, you fell over, under the big tree.
Always a yew tree in the cemetery.
Well, that's another pagan symbol, is the yew tree. And this could be fairly old. You're the gardening expert. I don't know how fast yew trees grow.
Well, one of the churches that we've visited before, there was one planted for the coronation.
That was right, Queen Victoria.
And that was about that size.
Yeah. Now, somewhere in here there is a war grave. Now, Paul is a bloodhound when it comes to war graves, but I don't even think...
It's over there. We've walked past it.
Oh, have we?
Yeah, Mr. Scape.
Oh, Mr. Scape. Right,
Yeah.
okay.
Watch out for the squished rabbit.
Oof. Yeah, that was sort of... I'll try not to put that on the camera to frighten anybody. Right, now somewhere is George.
George Scape.
No, the other one. But you see, this is an absolute beautiful, beautiful church.
It's worth mentioning that yellowish building over there was built as a schoolhouse.
Yeah, I'm not putting that on film because that is actually now a private house. So I'm not putting that on film. I should imagine they had enough of people looking through their windows. So this is St Mary's Church. Ah, this is the priest's door. An absolute darling. And you would have had to have been pretty tiny to fit in it. It is tall. I'm 6 foot tall. and I think it would probably come to the bottom of my neck. It is really, really small. So this, like I say, is St Mary's Church at Holton St Mary. I'm going to wrap this video up now. There's my family. And just to say, if you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. It does mean a lot to me. I haven't got many subscribers. I'd like a few more. Press the notification bell. But more important, if you like this church, if you want to come and see this church, come and see it. They only stay alive because people come here. And it's a church that really needs, it's really worth staying alive. It is absolutely beautiful. So if you don't live in Suffolk, try and make a journey over here. We're not unfriendly. We like people, you know, but it is just an absolutely worthwhile church to come and see. Okay, that's everything for the moment. See you on the next one.